So I want to give you a few reflections from us at the National Youth Agency, a few things that we've been up to, working with our partners and stakeholders, and we've done a lot of reflecting and listening over the last few years. The pandemic hangs over all of us very heavily, and just to give you really an example, we predicted in the pandemic about a quarter of the youth sector closed and wouldn't reopen, and I think that's about right, which is a real problem if you live in a community where that happens. And we've got some data coming. I'm going to talk to you in a bit about that. But through the pandemic, the NWA obviously took a very different role, where we were guiding and advising and almost instructing the sector what it could and couldn't do at different times, working incredibly closely with DCMS and officials and the lawyers, and it was a busy time. But as you came out of that, the world changes, and the NYA had to change, and we had to kind of almost modernise twice, it felt. We had to sort of modernise going into the pandemic and then become a different organisation out the back of the pandemic than what we went into it. So we did a lot of listening and engaging, and I'm very grateful to have Paul with us, who did the Joining the Dots review for us, which we'll be publishing in the next couple of weeks, where we spoke to 800 or so youth workers and organisations around the country about what do you need from infrastructure support, what do you need from us as an NYA and our partners and all the layers and everybody who's out there, and how we're all working collectively together to try and help frontline youth workers and ultimately help those young people that they work with. It's a messy, complicated space, and I think that's the politest way to put it. But there's beauty in the mess, actually, and there's collaboration and opportunity where we come together. And we all know that we're better together than when we work if we're trying to work individually. So my thanks to all our partners and stakeholders, whether you're delivering bursaries, whether you're working on peer review, whether you're engaging young people and supporting them to be involved in various projects and activities. Whether you're not working directly with us, but you are helping young people or youth projects on the ground, you make a difference, and we thank you. Welcome to Youth Work Week. The Minister sort of touched on youth work in every place and space, and we've had one of, I think, the biggest Youth Work Week we've ever had, which is a testament to not just my team, who've done a great job, but actually the sector, who took the theme and got behind it and... moved on, sorry. No, there we go. Who took the theme and pushed it as far as we could. We hit 3.2 million contacts, a total reach on social media. That's impressive, and is a huge, and the hashtag used there. 96,000 social media impressions, 96,000 posts of the hashtag of youth, YWW23. This just goes on and on. So we've just picked out a few of the key people. Sadiq, Mims will be with us this afternoon, and then Jamie from the Northeast. And then of the video that you've just seen, within Youth Work Week alone was 2,000 odd views. We ran a whole series of webinars and sessions and free training events last week, and 707 signed up. I think actually more turned up, so really, really impressive. And so just a big thank you. Youth Work Week is the opportunity for our sector to celebrate its brilliance and how it comes together and it works for young people. And what we saw was the richest, most vibrant bringing together of the evidence of why youth work makes a difference and matters. We can do all the research and all the studies in the world, but actually the stories that for you in a clip, a video, a statement from a young person, holding up the placard that says my youth work made this difference to me, is what motivates us at the NYA, and is very impressive. Youth Work Week 2024, we're already starting to think about it. I haven't told the team yet because but just barely recovered from this year. But we'll be back, and do get involved because it'll be amazing. A few things I wanted to touch on. Lloyd will be here in a little while, and some of you will remember, those that have been before, will remember the APPG inquiry report from now nearly 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. This was a bit of a landmark investment. The NWA spent £100,000 of its own reserves to get this report done, working with 60 MPs in this place to listen to the sector, to draw together what we felt was needed in terms of investment. And one of the recommendations of this report was that the statutory duty guidelines to local authorities was too wishy-washy and needed, this is my language, not the words in the report, but needed strengthening, needed clarifying. We needed to be much clearer with local authorities on the responsibility to deliver youth services. And it's taken a while. Fair, we've had a 2-year gap of a pandemic, so I kind of delete that period of time because we were worried about other things. But actually, There's a direct correlation between that piece of work and the new duty that the Minister talked about, or the updated duty, I should say, that the Minister talked about in his speech. And it's rare, sometimes to see the kind of policy work working its way through to what is now a much stronger document. I applaud the DCMS team, and I know we've got colleagues in the room, don't touch the screen, who worked really hard to get that duty guidance off the ground. We've also worked alongside them around developing our toolkit for local authorities. This is a 60-page how-to guide. The government says you must do these things, and we say this is what really good looks like and how you can do that. So there are copies here today, although I see the pile's already gone down. But if you're interested, you can also download it. And we've printed 1,000 copies and sent them out to local authorities. There's not a chief executive leader or director of children's services who doesn't have one of those on their desk. And we've also printed the government guidance document, so we've given that out. It makes a difference, and we're already getting contacts from councils and local authorities going, we haven't got any money, but we've seen this thing and we need to look at how we can respond. And the responding will be a collaboration between the voluntary sector and the local authority, public health, justice, police and crime commissioners, metro mayors. Collectively there will be a collective response to this. I'm not sure this will make the transformational difference that many youth workers, and I'm certainly one of them, would love to see. That will need the £1 billion that's been removed, put back over time. But we are seeing youth work back on agendas in local authorities. I've had 4 or 5 calls with directors of children's services, chief execs and others going, we need to invest in this. We can't keep pouring more and more cash into social care. We need to prevent young people ever needing those support services in the first place. And youth work is a major solution to that, and that is great. So to everybody who's worked on all this work, I just want to say thank you, because it's making a difference, and a special thanks to DCMS. In our toolkit, we've talked about the 9 areas in which local authorities need to focus on. Ultimately, this all goes to that blue box in the middle. What is the local offer on the ground that young people can engage in, connect with? Where is the right support in the right places to the right level of need? And have we got the right training of staff? But there's a legal, in the law. The law says young people must be consulted and engaged. The voluntary sector must be consulted and engaged. The new guidance now makes that very clear. There are colleagues in the room who have rung me over the last few years going, local authorities looking at cutting our grant. And what do we do? And I'm going, the new duty's coming and it should clarify this. I'm looking at Adam, but I've spoken to his authority recently, and they're taking it a bit more seriously, so this is good news. So yes, all local authorities need to work with you to work on these 9 areas and clarify that local youth offer. The only other bits missing there is they have to publicise the plan. It's no good just having a youth offer and not telling anyone about it, so they also need to do that. Alongside all the guidelines, what we decided to do was what internally I described to my team as the moonshot. We had a once in a 12, 13-year opportunity to revamp the guidelines and the guidance and to rebuild everything that sort of sits around that. And we've this year published brand new safeguarding standards, all new practice standards, which are a really important document around how we as practitioners conduct ourselves, what we do, how we do it, and the way and helping people understand this. And these are, and then the one at the end I've put on there is the private dwellings. One thing we learned through the pandemic was the amount of youth work taking place in private workers' homes was mildly terrifying, and is not allowed, full stop, pretty much. There are opportunities where you might use someone's field. If it's a farmer, it's technically a private dwelling, but actually camping is different to using someone's front living room. And we discovered that there was quite a lot of this going on. I'm very proud of Zaina, our head of safeguarding, who's worked with Sally, who's one of our trustees on the front, and a whole suite of stakeholders on our safeguarding steering group to shape these guidelines and bring these to us. Please take note of them, please use them, please pick them up, please see how they can help your practice. They are fundamentally important. But what we've now got with the duty and standards like this is the foundations are laid in which to rebuild the youth sector. And I think that's... And rebuild is a tricky turn of phrase, because the youth sector, as I often describe, is thriving and dying in probably equal measure depending on where you go. So there are parts of our sector which are doing incredibly well, really innovative, getting in money. I mean, some of the stuff you've seen in these videos, for example, is exquisite youth work, doing the best. And then there are other places where there's just less funding, there's just less support, there isn't the political local will to get behind it, and we need to build that up collectively. And we've got the foundations to start that process, and now let's get on with it. Many of you will be familiar with the national census the NWA has been undertaking over the last few years. This is a rolling process, this doesn't stop. So if you've registered or you haven't registered, you should go and do so and get all your partners and your friends and your members or whatever to do so. But some things that we found quite interesting was, a third of voluntary organisations only have enough reserves to keep them going for 6 months. That means that money, and we know in our sector, money comes in very lumpy. It doesn't come in nice monthly payments. It comes big tranches, nothing, big tranches, nothing, maybe something. And that makes life really difficult running the youth sector. One of the things we learned through one of the reviews we did was that the average sort of funding period for the youth sector is around 9 months. It's really hard to recruit and train and keep good quality staff if I can only give you a 3, 6, 9 month contract at a time. I probably know I'm going to keep you employed for the next 5 years because there's always something coming, but the lack of tenure of knowing that, and nowhere more is that damaging to us than our new apprenticeship programme, where to actually go and do a degree apprenticeship, you need a 3-year guaranteed job. So when your employer probably can employ you for 3 years, but can only give you a contract for 6 months, you can't do it. So we need to work collectively to change the way the funding landscape operates. And there are funders in this room who are on this and who are well aware and driving that. But locally, community funds, local authorities need to think far more longer term around the investment in frontline provision, because that's the way we'll build quality professional youth work for the sector. Over half of organisations delivered educational economic to disadvantaged young people. That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. In fact, I thought that figure could be higher. And about a third of organisations are working with young people with a disability. Now, the other graphic on the side here, pre-pandemic was the other way round. So 57% of youth provision is in our most deprived postcodes, and only 24% provision is in our least deprived, most affluent postcodes. Pre-pandemic, that was the other way around. So we've lost a quarter of our sector potentially, but it's come out of more affluent areas, which is in one way a bad thing, but also, thank goodness, we're trying to keep provision in areas where young people really need it. So we've got some copies of the latest census report here. Do take a look through that, and because it's full of information, and Alex and our research team have done an incredible job of pulling it together. We are aiming to map all of the youth sector. We've got all the uniform space in it. We've got pretty much all the local authorities now tracked into it. The gap, if there's a gap, is the voluntary youth sector, because it's really hard to map a group of parents who are coming together and book the village hall on a Friday night, who probably don't even know the NWA exists, but they're just doing good stuff for young people. Getting them tracked so we know we could give you our guidance, give you support is a big challenge. We need a lot more resource to be able to do that, and I'm grateful to funders and others who've got behind the census. It's making a difference. Underneath the census is the National Data Warehouse. This is a very dull, boring thing, but actually it's about bringing all the data and numbers together, and we're working with George Williams College and others and regions to bring all that intelligence together. Because once you've got all the numbers in one place, you can then really use it, and that work is well underway. One of the things the Minister touched on is the Youth Work Register. Youth Work Register is now live. We are a profession of degree qualified professional youth workers, and then level 2, level 3 youth support workers. But we have desperately lacked the parity of esteem with teachers and social workers. And one of the things that's missing from that is a formalised registration programme. So it came out of the APPG report. One of the other recommendations in the APPG report was there should be a national register of youth workers. The ICSA inquiry, the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, also highlighted the need for tracking and understanding the youth sector workforce. And DCMS have got behind that and have funded this register. So colleagues, you can now go and register. If you're not familiar with the Youth Work One website, you will be over the next few years. We've funded and resourced a neutrally branded website called Youth Work One, which is a single point of access for all youth workers to find everything they'll need. So there's the resource bank is full of currently 200 plus resources on all sorts of topics, and it's just help youth workers find what they need. What we heard constantly is, I'm really busy, every spare moment I'm either writing a funding bid, filling in a child protection referral, dealing with an issue, dealing with a parent, trying to find tools and resources. It takes time, and I don't have that time. We're not time rich in the youth sector. So we've worked to pull all this together in one place, and I'm really pleased that all the partners in this room actually who have given their resources to be on here so that everyone can find everything in one place. If you actually scroll down, there's 11 buttons now, and we will, over the next year, populate the rest of the system. But the Youth Work Register itself is a live tool. So you go in there, fill in the form, upload all your certificates, we check it through, and then, if approved, you get a registered certificate. It is a voluntary register. I need to be really clear. It is not a statutory register like we would find in Wales, for example. That's the next step we're aiming for. But it is important to bring that parity of esteem to practitioners in the youth space. We're starting with J&C professionals. The goal, subject to additional funding next year, would be to expand it to the youth support workers level 2, 3, and the following year would be all our volunteers and everybody else. You can imagine it's quite an administrative task running a register, so we're very grateful to the government for backing that, but it is now live, and do get registered. One other thing just to touch on is every couple of years we undertake a national workforce survey to try and understand the landscape, who's out there, who's doing what, and kind of what the training needs, what's the relevance of the current training we're offering, or not just MYA's offering, but the frameworks offer. The new national survey is live. This will all come out in our newsletters, etc. So we just want to encourage everybody to fill this in. Don't touch the podium. The more intelligence we gather through these surveys, the smarter the data, the better we can go to funders, to government, to other departments to say, get involved in this, invest in that, these are gaps, we need your help with these things. We're in a world that's very data driven. That's not a bad thing, but when you're data poor, it's not a great thing. So we need to get that data together, and we need the sector to get behind us in pulling that data together. So please fill in that workforce survey. It doesn't take very long, 10 minutes or so, and it will be really, really helpful. We've also published this year a Youth Work with Schools report, a report that rocketed. It took off like a rocket. I had never expected the schools report to do quite as well as it did. The last report we published that went so well was a rural youth work report. So we obviously hit a sweet spot of an area that the world is very interested in. Department for Education, and I know colleagues from DfE are in the room, we're very interested in understanding the interplay between youth work professionals and teaching professionals, pastoral care and all those components, and the role and the way our youth workers play. You saw in the video that colleagues from Oasis, which are literally like the nearest school to this place, isn't it? It can't be far. And their farm, and which is again not a stone's throw from here, and the role of youth workers in supporting those our young people to remain in education. There are awful statistics that are coming out at the moment around attainment and young people who are missing their education. 20% persistently missing it, up to 10% in different areas, completely missing from education post-pandemic. But those young people are not totally invisible. They are in our communities. They're not sitting in their bedrooms 24/7. They are out and about. They are engaging youth workers. They will go and find their local youth project. And it's interesting to me that in a school system that is clearly not working for some young people, those young people are seeking out youth work interventions where it does work. And the smartest schools recognise that and go, we're going to invest in putting youth workers in our team and give them equality across the organisation to invest in. The schools report talked about attendance, behaviour, community development and enrichment, and then their engagement, about all these components of youth work practice making a difference to the lives of young people within a system. We've also, I've got another slide on this, I think. These are just some of the comments that we picked up through that report. I'm not going to go through them all. You can have a quick read, but it's how you get across the importance of youth work and the purpose of youth workers and what the benefits are. I don't think educators know. We have work to do to support our education colleagues to grasp the importance of youth work. And I think this report's made a bit of a dent, but we'll keep going. Come back. I don't know what's going on with the screen. There we go. You have to look at that one now. The other report which we published last week, Youth Work Week, was, there we go, the screen's back. I don't know if I dare move. Was around the role of youth work and youth justice and the youth justice sector. And we're very grateful to have the chair of the Youth Justice Board with us today. We'll be on the panel in a moment. But what we discovered that the closure of youth centres led to a 10% increase in crime amongst 10 to 15-year-olds here in London. That's a direct correlation. There's a PhD student who did an entire thesis on this, who came to us and said, I've done all this research, is it useful to you? So we went, yes, we'll take that. And it's PhD standard intelligence, so we're very proud of that. And thank you to them. 4.6 young people in 1,000 are in our youth justice system. But the stonking statistic, which kind of matches the work that UK Youth did more recently around the social return on investment, the social value back to the society of youth work, the current investment in youth work saves the state £500 million in public spending on crime reduction alone. And if we were to invest and ramp that up, and you think of the difference that we're making around health, around all sorts of different categories of public services and society, youth work makes a colossal difference, and we need to scream and shout about it. Hence, youth work in every place and space, and being able to kind of recognise that. There's a lovely little quote here from Leigh. Is Leigh with us? She is. Hello. I'm probably the happiest I've been for ages. I'm going to stop there, because that's all I needed to hear when I heard that line. So, thanks, Leigh. You're amazing. And the last bit for me then is just to touch on the roadmap. So one of the things when I started at the NYA, it was 6 years ago now, I can't quite believe it's been 6 years. And I was with the Deputy Director of the DCMS at the time, who said, Leigh, welcome. I was about 3 weeks in. One of the challenges is the youth sector. There's probably about 30 organisations all trying to talk to government all the time. And they're all trying to lobby for their own thing. They're all trying to press their own priorities. But they're all quite different. And one of the biggest challenges we have is knowing where to prioritise, where to focus, and what to think, where we put our energies. And we set about after that to set up the National Youth Advisory Board to bring together 30, 40, 50, 60 organisations. It's a bit like an accordion. It kind of stretches and comes and goes as it needs. But the National Youth Advisory Board, being a panel of experts from across the sector, including funders, including frontline practitioners, including national, regional, local organisations, local authorities, the Local Government Association, and the DCMS, sitting around a table talking about the issues that the sector's facing, to come up with a consistent set of messages that we all want to put forth. So the roadmap is the latest version of this, which is all these organisations, I think it's probably more than this now, have signed up to the roadmap. The roadmap is the advisory board's baby. Tony's done a great job of Tony Gallagher, the chair of the board. But all these organisations have signed up to sticking to, essentially, I'm not going to go through these because there's too many, but 7 key asks going into the next general election. This is a manifesto ask. So we want from you, and I'm just going to pick out the bold words: workforce, invest in it; national youth offer, be clear what it is, make it available to people, make that national youth guarantee actually deliverable. Maximising impact, partnerships, participation, put young people at the heart of everything we do. Long-term funding, as I talked about a moment ago, so we can break some of those challenges around short-termism. Equality of access and opportunity for all young people. There's a postcode lottery. It depends where you live to what services you can gather. And then being evidence-based and helping us gather that intelligence and evidence. And not all of these are relevant to all organisations, but I encourage you all to take this away and to utilise it in your work. And as you're trying to lobby local MP candidates or your local parties, your local council elections, use the roadmap to make it. We have committed as 30 to 40 organisations to align to these core messages, working with the Back Youth Alliance and the core partners to be really clear about what the sector needs. And these are not difficult messages, but they are fundamentally important. So, last from me, what's next from us? So next year, we're hitting the road again. We'll be back out on the road delivering a series of roadshows across the country, and you'll be able to sign up for those roadshows in the next couple of weeks. We are very grateful to our colleagues at the Regional Youth Work Units, who yet again, and always partner with the NYA. Whenever we ask, they're fabulous. So thank you to our regional colleagues for getting involved. And we will, following on from the Joining the Dots review we did last time, what is it we do next? We will be publishing the NYA's brand new 5-year strategy around April time next year. And I know quite a few partners have sort of been discussed and engaged in the design of that new strategy. But that's our roadmap post-general election for us as an organisation going forward to invest in workforce, skills, standards, practice, young people, putting the voice of young people at the heart of all we do. And then the last one there, that very small little bullet point, it's the NYA's 60th birthday next year. So I challenge you to miss it, really, because we're going to make a big splash. We're going to have some events. We're going to do a lot of things next year. Next year's Youth Work Week, I'm sure, will be even bigger for our 60th birthday. NYA was established by the Albemarle report, which was in this place in 1964. We're in like the third, fourth version of NYA now, but we take our DNA back to the Albemarle report for those of you that are youth work history buffs. So join us next year to celebrate that 60th anniversary. What a year in an election year to make a huge noise about youth work all year long rather than just 1 week of Youth Work Week. So get involved and celebrate with us. Thank you very much.